something like that. I'd like to call the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board of Trustees meeting to order on Monday, June 3rd. It is 6:30 on my watch. We are in the Village Hall as well as on Zoom. The Zoom link is top of the agenda. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, then we have public appearances. This is public's opportunity to speak. If you are from the public and wish to speak, please say your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes in case we have a number of folks who'd like to speak. So with that, anybody in the room or on Zoom can jump in. Next then is to discuss and consider our meeting minutes held from our regular village board meeting on May 20th. Any questions, comments, edits in regards to the meeting minutes as presented?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Then we move right to presentations of the board. This is draft communications plan from Revelation. So,
John, I can just introduce
please.
Brian Lee from Revelation is here to present a high-level overview of the kind of status of the draft communications plan, where it sits today, and take some general feedback. And staff's still working through some things too, and they'll incorporate that into a final document, and they'll come back to a future board meeting to discuss this again. But Brian, there's a...
May I share my screen?
Yes, you can
please.
share your screen, and then there's an icon of a person speaking on the microphone in front of you there. If you press that, you'll be good to go.
Well, hi, everyone. As Matt mentioned, I'm Brian Lee. I'm president of Revelation PR, Advertising, and Social Media. You may recall that a year ago we assisted the village in some community outreach for the emergency services station with some community meetings right here in this room. A little background on my firm. We actually work a lot with municipalities. We have several projects underway right now in McFarland, Lone Rock, Mount Horeb, Whitefish Bay, the city of Madison, and then others throughout the state of Wisconsin. So we're eager to use our expertise and experience in this plan. Now, I do want to mention that with this communications plan, we performed an audit and analysis of the communications, internal and external functions of the village. And I'm not trying to butter Matt up, but he and his team are doing a very good job, and we didn't feel like there's a need to start over and blow everything up. So think of this plan, this draft plan, as an evolution, not a revolution, to how communications is done within the village. Again, this is just going to be a high-level overview so that when you do read the plan through in its entirety, that you understand the components of it, and I'm going to talk about these 3 sections today. Starting with the strategies and tactics, I do want to point out that what we did was, knowing how the staff structure is right now, we wrote tactics on 2 different priority levels, 1 based on how the staff is set today, and 2 if there is a future PIO position. Before I get into that, I do want to zoom out a little bit and make sure that you understand we are very goal-oriented. So the overall goal, as you know, is to improve the communications in the village. And what we did with that is develop sub-goals, or as we call objectives, for this plan. Now, I'm going to sidebar a bit in case you are thinking about this like I would, is that objectives should be SMART, so they should be measurable and have a time component. And as you can see, these are not. There's 2 reasons why we didn't do that. One is if you did want to have the full measurable component of it, like pre-campaign awareness levels and post-campaign awareness levels, you'd have to actually run surveys both before and after. and I wanted to save the village the cost of doing that. Instead, we built in key performance indicators for all the tactics so that you can measure along the way in a different format. In addition, the time frame, so like this first one would be enhanced two-way communication engagement with village residents by X% by December 31st, 2024. As you know, this is not a one-time deal. You always want to increase transparency and communications and engagement with the village. So there's no end time date. This is an ongoing thing. So hence the other reason why there's no time component in this. We created this plan and divided everything based on the target audiences so that instead of a one-size-fits-all approach to external and internal communications, we tailored the approach for every particular audience. So when you do read the plan, you will even see targeted key messaging strategy or talking points for each of the target audiences. So the first one is residents, and I do realize that is a little bit general, but as you'll see throughout the plan, we developed specific strategies to achieve the objectives, and the tactics are how you execute the strategies, okay? So I won't read through all these, but just ones I want to point out. For example, the second one here, Facebook groups. Hope this doesn't break hearts, but as we've learned, not all residents get their information from official village channels. They're typically getting it from other sources. So one of the things that we recommend is making sure to continue to post in other groups like in the Grove, because that is where your residents are getting information. And then also to have to advertise your social media posts to residents. So the way social media channels are set up, sorry to get in the weeds of this a little bit, is that they make it very difficult for your own fans or followers to see your own posts. This is why companies like Meta make multiple billions in profit each quarter, because you have to pay to have your own fans see your posts. And that's what we are recommending in this plan too, to spend about up to $50 a month to make sure the absolute most crucial news or announcements get out there to the village. So you'll see that in the plan as well. Another strategy within the general residents is that making sure to get out there and engage them one-on-one as much as possible. So hope I'm not insulting anyone. As we've learned in working with many municipalities is that most residents do not know who their elected officials are. And one way to help with that is that you are the big channel, the in-person channel, two-way communications with residents. So what we are recommending within this plan is having office hours. That could be weekly, monthly, quarterly, and what will happen is that the staff will provide you with bullet points on a weekly, bi-weekly basis of things going on so that you have these talking points when you are out there engaging with the community, and at the same time, two-way communications, you're also getting information from them and relaying that back to the village as needed. These office hours could be right here, they could be at coffee shops, they could be anywhere you want in the community. It's just one of the many tools that we listed in here as to how to further community engagement. Then we broke down residents into several subgroups, starting with families. And we have, again, specific tactics and messages. One thing I do want to note is that we've learned that residents that are families will have a high understanding of what's going on within the school district. So if the school district sends out communications, it is much more likely to be read than communications from the village. So as a result of that, we are recommending that you strengthen your relationship with MG, and if there's any kind of announcements that are important to families, that you piggyback on their channels, newsletter, social media, et cetera. We have found that many municipalities have this great symbiotic relationship, and that they can also send communications to you as well to send out community-wide. We want to make sure that the village is as inclusive as possible, so there's another subgroup called the underrepresented populations. This can include many groups, including the BIPOC community, senior citizens, the disabled community, et cetera, okay? And we looked at different ways of approaching them. What we know is that you can't rely on every traditional communications method to reach underrepresented populations. You have to have very targeted forms. So just one example is even within media relations, when you're sending out press releases, is to make sure to work with publications like Madison 365 and La Comunidad, those special targeted publications. And then to make sure that documents are translated as much as possible, and to have interpreters at these public meetings whenever possible. You may think, well, no one's coming, so why do I need to have this interpreter? It's the reverse. It's people feel that they can come because of these interpreters. So when we're hosting meetings in other communities, we typically do have Spanish and Hmong interpreters live on site, and when we do them on Zoom, we actually open up a second channel so that they can hear the live interpretation of the meeting going on in that language. Then those young folks, those young professionals, how do we reach them? So among the things that we list in the plan is to specialize using Instagram for that approach. So that Instagram is reformatted more toward reaching the young professionals than the rest of the population. So for example, videos. Lots of that 24 to 35 crowd, they're using videos to understand everything and how the world works. So it's creating those videos such as how to apply for a dog license. You would think that they could just go on the website and look up that information, but again, we want to communicate in the channels that they're comfortable and familiar with, and that's why we're advocating for using these tools for those purposes. Not just residents, but businesses are a vital part of this community, as you know. We love that people like JJ are out at the Chamber of Commerce and speaking on a regular basis. We do recommend you continue doing that. I also think my firm has had a working relationship with MADREP, the Madison Region Economic Partnership. We feel that that could be a good, further strong ally and partner for the Village of Cottage Grove, especially as you have new developments like Amazon. I think that they can further enhance the brand of the Village of Cottage Grove as being business friendly. And the last target audience in this plan is, of course, the internal, the staff and you trustees here, is to making sure that there are no silos. I'm not saying that there were, but just to make sure that there are no silos in communication and everyone is aware. So what we want to make sure is that within the staff that everyone in every department knows what anyone else is doing. And similarly, as I indicated earlier with the office hours, is to make sure the trustees are given talking points so that anytime you're at a grocery store, the library, or whatever it is, that you're able to talk about all the projects on the key messages uniformly. So everyone's saying the same thing, whether it's you, everyone's saying the exact same things. And we also have some tools that we can use to do that, and I'm going to talk about that now. So the software that we are recommending for communications is spawned from a couple things. One, based on what would be helpful in the day-to-day lives of the village staff. As you know, again, we interviewed everyone and we understand the ins and outs of how the communications function works. And then also what you're already using and what we could just grow on that. So for example, I know JJ is creating graphics in Canva, and we recommend continuing to use Canva. Even though there are other tools, Canva is very good for the purposes that the village is using. But the two tools I do want to point out in this conversation right now are the AI tools. It's so interesting that 2 years ago, we wouldn't have had this conversation. Last year, we may have just touched upon it, but now we are fully recommending it with a lot of our clients. Unfortunately, I guess AI is so new that there aren't a lot of case studies to learn from, but based on understanding how these tools work and my firm also using them, we feel that these could be an asset to the village. So let me just walk you through an illustration. Is that this meeting is recorded, and these AI tools can then transcribe this meeting word for word, okay? So then you have a full written transcription. Then the AI tools will do several other things. They can write summaries of this for multiple purposes and formats. One, for a blog post on the website. Here's a 150-word recap of this meeting. Then it can also craft newsletter articles for an eventual e-newsletter that we are recommending, and then also for social media posts. So it could be, you can ask AI to write 5 social media posts based on what was discussed in today's meeting. So that is saving a lot of time that a staff member would have to do to transcribe, figure out what to write about. AI can do it within seconds for you. So just another way to enhance communications and using tools to help augment the staff as it is right now. Lastly, we also included some standard operating procedures for communications functions and also wrote some guidelines. So on the SOPs, These are based on how things are functioning right now, talking again to Matt, JJ, Inga, all the department heads, et cetera, and following best practices. Basically, everything was done. We just put it in writing. So new staff can come in, read it, and understand right away how to do things in an efficient manner. And then the guidelines for both media and social media. So the Herald Independent calls, XYZ staff member, what does that person do? And now there's no ambiguity in that, not that there was before, but now they can just read that list and understand, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do or allowed to do or should do based on these guidelines. So that's the highlight and overview of this plan. As Matt mentioned, that the staff, they are continuing to look through it. Even once we incorporate their revisions and your revisions, is that this plan is a live, living document. So we can continue to add to it based on new goals, new situations, new tools out there. So again, this is not written in stone. I'll just say it that way. We will keep building on it, and I don't necessarily mean me. It could be you or the PIO. So I'm happy to entertain questions. I know I speak very quickly. I can go over any of the points again.
All right, thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian?
Just like to thank you for the presentation. I look forward to reading more details, and I think we have a good base and a lot of things to grow on just based on what I'm hearing tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate those words.
All right, nothing else for Brian? We're looking to the details. All right, then we'll move to unfinished business. This first up is review the village mission, vision, values, statements, and consider possible changes. Cameron?
I'll take the first swing at this. So in your packet, you'll see a couple attachments. So there's 2 attachments, one specifically that's a little bit more brief feedback from the board members, as well as a more comprehensive one. I will share the more comprehensive one because I think it encapsulates any recommendations from the other. So let me share this. So what we are asking for from the board today is just to provide some recommendations. So this was from a specific board member, but just asking for either no action, action, and what possible changes you would recommend.
One thing to add, John, and Inga, maybe you can just cover a little bit, is Inga updated the past memo that she put together on the staff feedback to include at the end some more detail as we're updating our performance evaluation process, just kind of how internally we've attempted to further define the values so they could be utilized in the evaluation process. And she included those on page, the bottom of page 2 and 3 in her memo. I don't know if there's anything to add to that, Inga. Sorry to take your.
No, that's fine. Just trying to bring them down to an operational level. So like Matt said, we can use them during that performance evaluation time period for our employees.
All right, I'll open up to trustees, the board.
So starting with the mission statement, we got to start somewhere, right?
That's a good place to start.
It seemed like there might be some wordsmithing to do to make it more, I don't know, flow more efficiently and more inclusive. We gathered that last time around a little bit from capturing from the staff. So are we looking to go ahead with changes tonight, make change recommendations for staff to work on, or should we go through the details? It looks like Cindy put together track changes.
Yep.
I don't know.
The agenda item
that.
is consider possible changes, so I
right.
think leads right into that.
I actually
Sure.
encapsulated a lot of good points. You know, like on this one, she takes off while encouraging our unique community appeal. I think that's really important. I felt that the mission statement and the vision was good, and I think if we want to wordsmith, we could slice and dice it 100 different ways, but there's certain elements that each one of us are going to be striving for, and I guess I'd like to understand what the end goal is, because what we had to begin with, I felt was pretty well put together.
Pete, I think the end goal, I think, was just to revisit this because we hadn't done it in a little while, and there was a fresh pair of eyes, I should say plural, and thoughts involving this. So I think that's what the purpose of it was. Cindy obviously took the time to go through track changes and incorporated some of the comments of the both board members and staff, as well as some things that she had in addition to that. So I'm fine with just, taking a look from start at the top of this document that's provided with the details and walk through that with the board here and see what we want to do with it so we can kind of move this forward if possible. So with that, I guess I can start. I think the adjustments to the mission statement all the way through to, where is the end of it? Distinctive community charm, I think that's where it kind of ended. And then there's another statement there.
I can explain that statement. So I think that
Okay.
it's not a complete statement, obviously.
Yeah.
I think this was before the last meeting, so just trying to understand like whose mission, vision, core values these are, and like where they are housed. And I think that right on the website they're housed under the village board, but they're like the village's mission, vision. But I almost wondered if it needed to be a little bit more of like the organization, which means like village board, and then like the organization underneath it. Just like going through and reading the core values, by the time I got to the bottom, I was like, well, this is really talking more about like village operations, not like village.
Yeah,
So that's just where where my changes and my questions were coming from.
Yeah, so, some of this is gonna be caught from like a quality control perspective as we're doing a redesign for the website, re-reviewing and rethinking where it makes sense to have things, and it was never meant to be purely the board's a decision maker, but it's not the board's, it's not only the board's mission, vision, values, it's the organization. So we probably could have either a couple different landing spots, or maybe there's a better spot for it on the website, but it wasn't, if that wasn't, clearly that wasn't clear having it that way, and that's not,
Yeah, not to me.
that wasn't the intent, but.
Which is why that second sentence, I was like, well, if this is like an organizational thing, then I thought we needed an extra thing, but I'm fine, obviously striking that.
And maybe the values need to go somewhere else, where you just, typically when you go to a site, you see the mission and vision. Occasionally you do see the values, but not always. And that's where I think that causes confusion.
And then to Peter's point, there's unique community appeal, I think distinctive community charm. I mean, obviously can switch it back.
So it's the recommendation, the first sentence as edited, except for instead of community charm, community appeal? Did I get that right, Cindy? Is that what and then not add the words after it?
Yeah, I think based on that.
Yep, I like that.
Why would we take out efficiently and effectively providing, right? We want to be efficient, we want to be effective. As a board, as a community.
Pete, you're saying add it back in, or?
Yeah, I don't know why we would take out being efficient and effective. That's critical to what we're trying to do.
I think the intent there was, and I'm not arguing whether we take it in or out, was I think the thought was condensing it a bit. But I agree.
Okay, well, if that's the goal, that's fine, but if the mission is to cover what we're trying to stand for, I mean, I think it really needs to thread that needle, right? Do we want it to be comprehensive, or we want it to be brief?
I actually vote for a little both. I want it to be enough in there that you get the meaning of it and you have enough, you can use it. So we don't want to take all of it out of there, to my point.
I would be fine with it in or out. I was thinking along similar lines that to streamline the mission statement, so it's not, an entire paragraph long. So I'd be fine keeping it in because I think that is our mission to do those things, to provide the services efficiently and effectively for all community members.
I guess, Rick, so we're avoiding, Robert's rule issues. I guess one way to do this is we go through and accept changes as we go or reject changes, and then they will decide on it in totality. Or, I guess, any recommendations on how to proceed?
Yeah, so there are a few ways we could do it. I mean, you could potentially just designate, I guess, provide feedback and designate one person to sort of rewrite it and then bring it back for sort of final approval. We could go through this line by line tonight and just sort of do straw polls as we go about whether people are okay with certain changes or including certain things in like the values. So I guess I'd leave it up to you on what you think is the best method of doing it. But I think Robert's Rules doesn't really cover something like this, so I think we can be flexible on how we go about it tonight.
Okay. Well, it's all in one action item or one consideration agenda, so, and we do want to move through it, so I think top to bottom is the easiest thing to do.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I think it's good. So leaving in efficiently and effective, putting in community members.
Do you have the document or do you want me to do it?
I have the document.
Okay.
I have the document open and I can accept as we go
Just do that.
or reject as we go. So I guess I'm the first one, efficiently and effectively.
We're leaving that in, I think, is what I'm
Efficiently and
hearing.
effectively providing exceptional
Services.
Okay.
And then I think I heard Heidi just naturally, instead of our, put all community members.
Oh, yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Let's go.
And one other thought about just this process. I mean, as we go through these like proposals, one way to do it is just to, if anybody's objecting to like the insertion or deletion, otherwise just sort of, just might streamline it a little bit.
Thank you, Rick. Unless anybody has objected to that.
No.
So we're good on the mission?
Yeah, and then after all community members, then are we okay with just fostering economic and enhancing distinctive community charm or whatever, unique community? There's a lot of words there, but what are people's thoughts?
I think Peter suggested unique community appeal, so let's go with that.
Okay. Getting that?
I'm not a clerk, so I'm gonna do this as
I
good
know,
as I
that's
can
why
do.
I'm checking with you.
I
have a clerk
got-
over here, and
We were just debating if you wanted services plural or not plural.
Plural.
Okay.
Plural, yeah, plural.
To our community member. What was the next part?
yeah, then-
Accepting deletion of add and partnering to. Okay.
Yep.
Fostering ing.
Yep.
And then distinctive community charm, or did you want to go back to the unique community appeal?
We said go back.
Okay.
Unless the goal is to make it a little more concise. It adds a little more to that first sentence, but it's certainly, it makes the point.
Do you want the sentence in the, as a system of local government, we are committed to open?
No,
No?
delete.
So
No.
taking that out.
But then, yeah, like all is a good change because
Yeah.
it's not possessive.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
That makes more sense.
And go back to unique community appeal?
But if you leave and enhancing our distinctive community charm, you've got a very concise one-sentence mission statement, which is pretty powerful.
Okay, so we're going to keep enhancing our distinctive community charm and leave out the unique community appeal.
Yes.
And the word "our" before community members, change that to all. It wasn't in the original track changes.
That's a good one, Sarah.
Anything else with the mission statement? It's like a mini workshop, by the way.
There's a dash in front of the E after fostering. There we go. Well, you talk about brief, there you go.
All right, want to move on then to the vision statement?
So I added the village of, assuming we
That's a
wanted
good
it to be
change.
village.
Very good
specific.
clarification, I like that.
Okay. The reason I struck friendly and attractive is because I don't like those adjectives, and I thought welcoming was better than friendly. I don't know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I like all the changes in the vision statement.
I thought we just had a lot too of like the live, learn, work, play, enjoy. Like it was a lot of like live, laugh, love, like a little too much for me. So I just took a little bit out.
Put it on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Any other comments regarding to the revisions to the vision statement? I'm hearing nothing, so I'm assuming everybody's good. All right, then we move into the core values. And we have the additional community focus.
Which I'm not a fan of like community focus, but I thought like these bullet points, to me, they were more important because they kind of encompassed a little bit more of like the people here, like that we want to like protect and invest in like their well-being and like the safety. And I think that came too. I went through the priorities from the last handful of years, which is in the comments, and kind of just picked out reoccurring themes and put how many times they were in there. So it's where some of those changes were coming from. Although, like, some of them are also respect, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
I think it's an interesting take to, yeah, add in more of like who it is we're serving also, but it's also like who are the core values focused to, like how it was written previously, and so do we want to expand that or not? I guess that I'm open to either suggestion.
Again, like, my understanding being like that this, I thought that this was more like organizational driven, but then if we're gonna like branch out and be like more overall encompassing, I thought it just needed a little bit more.
Everybody good with that one?
It is confusing to me though, where the core values fit throughout the community and the staff, right? It's confusing. I mean, the mission and the vision, totally get it, right?
Which is why I really thought the core values almost need to be housed under village board. If we're like the top of your organizational pyramid, and all of these core values then like trickle down into how we're making decisions and who is providing the services and what services we're providing and that kind of thing. Also, we should change residents to community members again.
got that, Cameron?
I'm not sure about the word empathetic. Be sensitive and empathetic to individual values. I wonder if that whole bullet, is it okay to only have 2 points?
Or, I mean, we can bring these down into the other
Into some
core
others.
values, because like the, I don't know.
Yeah.
For the individual values, like that kind of goes along with like honoring diversity or treating everyone fairly, and
Yeah.
like maybe we bring community members back into like some of these bullet points. It's just my
Mm-hmm.
point.
Empower excellence. That's a tough one to get my head around.
Which one?
Versus empower people to do their best, right? We want, when you say empower excellence, I'm not quite sure I'm following the excellence. Empowering people to do their best it has more meaning to me than empower excellence in terms of that particular bullet.
That's fine.
I mean, it's more, from a verbose basis, empower excellence has a better ring to it, but empower people to do their best to me has more meaning.
Well, it has a little bit more action to it. So I'm used to core
Yeah.
values also having like a little bit of an action behind it.
Mhm.
Can we get rid of community focus? Can we just leave it as community, or can we like, not like community focus?
Community's fine.
Community, okay. And then you just strike empathetic.
Say the whole bullet point.
Or just the word and.
I was
empathetic.
thinking the whole bullet point, but I can be convinced to keep it in.
I would just strike empathetic and leave the,
Or do you
The
change
third
it to
bullet
community members' values? I mean, I'm just trying to bring the person back into this.
Maybe it's listen or hear individual values. Being sensitive and empathetic, I think, are more personality traits than.
Which is why I think like friendly and attractive. I had a problem with that too. So like, yes, agreed.
But yeah, that we're hearing from all residents or listening to the input from,
I
every
think there
part
was
of our
a
community.
listening bullet point, wasn't there somewhere?
I think there was.
Oh, listen
Yeah.
more, talk less,
Mhm.
which I changed to active listening. But bring that back. Maybe without the dots.
So are we dropping that third one under community?
Yeah.
And we're kind of weaving it in elsewhere? Okay. And then under respect, we're going back to empower people to do their best?
Yep.
Okay. And then sliding down then to innovation.
Well, I think did I have a note about the protect the environment one? Oh yeah, why is this here?
I think it was just literally like respecting the environment as far as sustainability and things like that. I
Okay.
think that's where it was
Like-
coming from. It's hard to remember.
Like Mother Earth,
It was a
not-
couple years ago, so I was trying to
Yeah.
remember how people discussed it, but I think that's where it was.
Okay.
So anything else under innovation?
I had moved the continuous or strategic development and I added responsible growth, but I moved that up from excellence. If you're okay with that.
Fine with me.
That sounds good.
And then if we're good with that, then we move down to excellence. Thoughts there? Anybody have?
Yeah, I like the change and the attract and retain exceptional team members. I think that's also shows like that we develop team members to grow in their positions also.
Can you change it to services if we're keeping plural up in the mission?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I apologize. I wasn't showing the changes on the innovation, accepting all in the innovation section.
Yes, I think it's, I didn't hear anybody. We're trying to make your job easier over there, Cameron.
You're brave, tracking changes for the whole group.
Are you ready for excellence or no? Okay. Anything there anybody wants to? Heidi just said she liked about the talent, exceptional talent.
Yeah, I agree with the edits.
Okay. Cameron, you can accept those. And then adding professional under integrity.
Oh, I don't know if I like that. Maybe just go with integrity. If we're going all with like the one.
Okay. So we don't want that then, just leave it simple as integrity.
And then maybe go back to listen more, comma, talk less.
Maybe just listen. Do we have to talk less? I don't know. Just I don't know.
What is that expression? You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, using that proportion, something like that.
Listen more.
Listen more.
You're taking talk less out, right?
Yes, I think that's what I heard. Talk less, remove that, and just listen more.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
listen more.
I like it.
How are we doing over there?
Doing good.
Okay.
You're doing great, Cameron.
I don't envy Lisa ever.
It's an experience in job shadowing right here at live. Then we move down to collaboration and teamwork.
Maybe go back to celebration, but use collaboration and teamwork like as a bullet point.
I like that.
But you have to like something, collaboration and teamwork.
Right, I almost think encourage collaboration and teamwork, but then we're using encourage in the next point too, so,
Is collaboration and teamwork kind of the same thing?
right.
I like the teamwork, but I
But
also.
isn't that what the first bullet says? It's basically reflecting collaboration and teamwork when you read it.
Yeah.
Encourage communication, mutual support to achieve shared goals. Kind of like collaboration and teamwork right there.
Yeah, maybe I was just defining my title. But yeah, strike collaboration and teamwork, go back to celebration.
And then
And
leave the
not-
first.
And then add the first bullet point.
And collaboration and teamwork is not a bullet point.
Right.
No.
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't like our wins, like wins in quotations.
Accomplishments and successes feel like the same thing. Could we just say recognize accomplishments or recognize?
But a success isn't necessarily an accomplishment. So I do personally like successes better than the wins and quotations.
Okay. And keeping both accomplishments and successes? Peter?
Yeah, I think recognize accomplishments and highlight successes. I think that kind of encapsulates both of them.
Anything else with that one?
I think the reason for wins in quotes was because, as an example, something that one board member might think is a win is not a win for everyone. So,
Good point.
yeah, so that's that's kind of where that was coming from, and staff really, feels that as well. So that, but not advocating for that staying in, but that was why it was in there in the first place.
Makes sense.
For the create enjoyable workplace, are we on that one yet or not?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I like the foster an enjoyable and positive workplace better than create enjoyable workplace.
What about the one right above it?
I agree with the edits
Well,
there.
maybe if we have recognize and recognize accomplishments, let's just do reward excellence. Too many,
Do you mean to recognize this?
yeah. And then with the last two are the promote. Did I write that? Promote a healthy work-life balance? Or was that already in there? Or balance family and work? And you still call it work-life balance. I know we've gotten away from calling it that. And we like incorporate more like a well-being into
Yes.
our culture. Because balance implies that two things can be like evenly dispersed, and we all know that it can't be. So I don't know if that's still a thing, or what the culture is
It's
here.
hard.
Because I guess I too like balance family and work. Like, is family like too specific? I don't, or not inclusive enough?
We're so close here, it's all family. All the time.
Oh, that's sweet.
I like that, promote healthy employee well-being, or employees and village board as well.
You know, there's like the wheel of well-being now, and like all that. So,
Yeah.
it's great.
Was the second to last bullet meant to be two separate things, or just foster an enjoyable and positive workplace?
It was just, I think my suggestion was just the foster an enjoyable and positive workplace, and dump the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So are we at promote a healthy work-life balance, or promote healthy well-being, or,
I don't know.
I
the
like the
language.
well-being, so promote a healthy well-being. When you take work-life balance, it really kind of draws a lot of lines.
Could we just say promote well-being?
Yeah.
Again, healthy well-being
Right.
feels like
That's
Yeah.
true, promote well,
Mhm.
yeah.
the same
Yep.
thing.
Well, that just doesn't sound right, but we all know what promote a healthy work-life balance means, but I understand some of the concerns.
Any other adjustments here people can think
I
of?
still struggle with the promote well-being. It's just kind of an odd statement.
Um,
We want everybody to be healthier. Are we talking about some sort of work life, or is it just about health, or, it's under celebration? It's just kind of an odd statement, under celebration.
Maybe just get rid of it. Because like,
I agree
can
with
well-being
that.
just be in part of the positive workforce
Yeah.
Totally.
place?
Cindy,
Could,
I
could be
agree.
that, or advocate for well-rounded
Stuff.
lifestyle? I don't know.
But is that a core value of like
Yeah,
the village?
Under celebration,
yeah.
I think, yeah, it can just be part of an enjoyable and positive workplace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just do that.
Yeah.
Any other suggestions or changes?
Does staff think that it's inclusive for, because you're the ones that are day-to-day?
Go back to. I think a question for you, Inga.
Sorry, I was looking at other alternatives of how to say healthy work-life balance, so. But yes, I think they look good to me.
I'm pretty impressed with our real-time workshopping of this. we're looking for something official to approve in this, or?
Yeah, so you could either do this tonight, I suppose. Well, I said review village mission, vision, values, and consider possible changes. So I think we could approve this as is tonight with Cameron's changes, or if you wanted to, I guess, give it one more read through just to make sure everything looks good and then bring it back for final approval. I think either of those would work. So if you want to do it tonight, that's totally fine.
What's the feel on the board?
I think we should approve it tonight, otherwise I'll just edit more.
Okay.
Maybe if the motion is to approve, maybe motion to spell check. Just I trust Cameron, but just
We'll just make sure all the tenses are correct too then. Okay, thanks.
I would then make a motion to approve the mission, vision, and values statements as edited with any minor grammatical and spelling error corrections.
I'd second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we move to another unfinished business item, which is for the board to review submissions for the non-capital priorities and determine kind of the next step forward for this. So you had a memo in the packet that Cameron put together for us based on the surveys.
Yep, so I appreciate everybody responding to the survey. There were a total of 28 submissions for the board's non-capital prioritization this year. As I kind of mentioned in kind of my summary, there are some that are relatively similar in nature, or at least from a first read, would be difficult for myself to do rating of the current high, medium, or low. So I will turn it over to the board to kind of discuss, you know, kind of the goal here would be similar to the mission, vision, value, get a final inventory of submissions, and then by June 14th, you'd get the survey with this and the capital items.
All right, anybody want to start off? Nobody's
Since mine are
bashful.
earlier on the list, I focused on things that we are not currently doing. I think that there's a lot of other items that I also feel are important that other people had submitted, but in my two submissions, I focused on things that I think we could add to what we have done in the past as guidance on how to develop the budget for next year. So that's how I approached this.
So Heidi, I will add to your comment, just because yours has a specific kind of 2024 budget goal. If you remember, those who are on the board when we were doing the budget, if you look on the last page, we were given direction that pending budget performance to move forward, hiring a full-time parks and maintenance employee in Q4. I kind of just mentioned it's too early to make that final determination. So current guidance right now is to prioritize that position. So kind of two thought processes here. You leave it in here to help give board additional guidance on that decision, or you take it out with the understanding that that is a current priority that is being working on implementing.
And I would be fine taking out, considering it's already in motion. However, next year's budget is not yet approved, and I would very much like to have that as something that I would not like cut from the proposal, if that makes sense.
So I've watched this process from afar from the last handful of years, and I guess I really struggle as to like why we need to rank them, because I think, you know, I loved reading everyone's ideas, and I really agree with most of the ideas on here, and I think we can do more than you know, a few that we might consider, like if we were to rank them as like a high priority, and I think they still have to come back to the board, right? We still have to discuss them, we still have to put energy into them. And so I'm wondering why we have to go through the process of ranking them, especially given that there's so many. And the process, like assigning 20 points, or how you did it a couple years ago, but even ranking high, medium, low, ranking on a scale of 1 to 5 is just really kind of virtually impossible to get meaningful data, I feel like, out of a list of 30 items. And I'm wondering if this could just be more of like this is what I want to accomplish, so when we're all kind of on the same page of what we might be seeing this year. Staff has some direction of what they might expect our objectives to be, but going through a process of then ranking, like what if something's not on here that we want to do? And then we just bring this back and we're like, well, it wasn't on the priorities list, so try again next year. Like I really struggle with the whole process about assigning points and trying to
But it
extract
helps,
data.
it helps provide some alignment, Cindy, in terms of where the momentum is in terms of the general priority of the board members, right? So 20, without prioritizing, where do you start?
Just in the experience of having gone through this a couple times, I think that the points assigned to various priorities have been taken out of context, perhaps. And maybe each board member, like maybe we understand, but as the community looking into something that has like the highest point priority, like it's all how then the reader interprets it on what the highest ranked priority means, and it may not really communicate what is going to happen in the next budget. You know,
Or
I
is
just feel
even
like it's hard
realistically
to-
feasible.
Sure.
Like, we know that a library is not going to be built next year. And so that, I could put that down as my priority, but that's not, and rank it high, but that's not something
Yeah,
that is.
But I thought the whole point of, instead of being high, medium, low and giving it 5 points or whatever, to try to get the granularity to add meaning. I thought that's when we talked before, that was kind of the ingoing plan for how we would do this next step.
Again, like,
Which I agree.
how
I
are we
agree. If
planning
it's
it?
high, medium, low, it's just everything's gonna just logjam.
I guess how are we going to use this document? If we do prioritize it, how are
That's
we
a
going to
better
use this during budget season? Are we going to actually have it as a checklist or a check and some balance where we're actually going to take it out and go through the budget and then make sure that we have gone in order of what the priority ranking is?
I think you bring up a good point. Exactly. What is the end game? What is being with the end in mind? What is the end of what we're trying to accomplish here in general? Even putting these together to begin with.
And to me, I really see it as like it's a communication and transparency tool. So I'm fine with my objectives being right under my name on the village website. Like, this is what I feel is important, this is what I want to do. But when it comes to trying to stack, rank, order, it's impossible to do that with this many objectives.
So where we ended up in the past when, because at one point, the capital items and non-capital were combined, and that was really muddying up the waters and causing the board to, it just was a faulty process that wasn't helping anyone align. So the board asked our financial consultants, how do other communities do this from a capital perspective at least, because those are, at least maybe the board can align on the big ticket items. But more importantly, from a execution standpoint, is that capital items, since most of them are borrowed for, the board actually has the more or less the unilateral authority to make those approvals. The non-capital items were so constrained by levy limits that even for our existing service profile in the next couple of years, we'll likely need a referendum for existing services. So getting too into the weeds on non-capital items is really difficult outside of just kind of what Cindy was alluding to on, here's my personal list. put it out there. It kind of helps, you know, board members for transparency, residents for transparency, staff to see it. Because at the end of the day, it's hard to really execute on it when it comes to the budget, because we don't really have the flexibility to increase the levy even with our growth. So, not trying to be negative, that's just kind of how we've ended up where this is at. So when we finished the capital process last year, there was some debate at the board at that time as to how this would even look going forward at all. And a majority of the board at that time wanted to still put together this list and rank them high, medium, low, but not do the point system the way it was previously. So having said that, it can be any which, it's up to the board entirely. So we'll work with whatever you guys want to do. And the other, one last comment is, you know, kind of the other extreme on this would be to, you know, kind of fully invest into doing a strategic plan and, you know, hiring a facilitator and going through that process. But as you can see tonight, even though a lot of great work done, this isn't at a formal board meeting. It's not really the right forum for that with all the other business that, you know, we'd really want, and this hasn't happened in the past, or there hasn't been enough alignment on the board as far as, hey, we want to have a bunch of workshops, maybe a retreat, and do a strategic plan. But that's kind of the other end of, that would help us get to something that's maybe more actionable. So.
But that might also then clarify your prioritization process going forward for the village too, if you had like that framework, which I believe is referenced in one of the points.
It is. So is the thought then, at this point, from the board perspective, this is informational to all your fellow board members, and we can, you know, go back and reference this as we go through the process, because there may be something applicable, but not go through any type of ranking, high, medium, low, or 1 to 5, or whatever. Because, as Matt referenced, at the end of the day, the levy is the levy, and it's not too big for all these things. I was writing down, including mine, just, well, that's gonna cost money, that's gonna cost money, that's gonna cost money. And then I thought, oh, back to the whole dilemma we're gonna have here, at least the next few years of, you know, going up to the levy.
And I'll
So
play
it's-
devil's advocate on my own point. Like, if we do rank order them, and then we say, okay, we're gonna do number 1, and we can only do number 1, or we can do number 1 and 2. But I feel like a lot of these things too, we could do more than one of. And then what happens when things aren't on our list? And again, communication and transparency, like where did that come from? Why wasn't it on the list to begin with? And then you do have your village survey that I haven't seen the data for, but I would have loved to see that data before I started writing these priorities too, 'cause I think that's a good research tool to use, obviously. So I would be in favor of communication and transparency and putting these out for public consumption, but you know, under my name or whatever. But I think just because there's so much and so limited ability to be able to do all of it, that it's just, and it's impossible the way it is to rank with the tools that we have. You can do like what prioritization matrix, and really you need to be trained to in like scales, and everyone needs to calibrate to the right scale, and so they're all ranking in the same, and there's so much internal bias, and you can go on and on about that kind of stuff.
Well, and I agree with you, Cindy, in the sense that there's just not enough information here under these bullets to actually say that this, you know, this is number 1, therefore we're going to do it. Well, it's not fully vetted. There's not enough information to be able to make sound decisions based on just some of the information here. That it needs more work, right? Quite honestly. So I'm with you in terms of this is just more informational, and we move on and not spend a lot more time on it unless there is something that we're actually going to do with the results of the prioritization that we're going to be accountable for.
I think that there are some points made in here also that I agree would apply to many different actions. So fiscal responsibility goes with every decision that we make. You know, whatever we pursue, we're looking at it through a lens of fiscal responsibility or diversity, equity, inclusion, or sustainability. Like, we should be applying these, like, looking at things from all of these perspectives as we make our decisions. So I think it's a good kind of guiding document.
And I think we kind of included some of them in the values that we just edited,
Yeah.
right? Sustainability was in there, I think something worded
Sa-
similar to
prioritizing public
fiscal.
safety. and
Public
like, yeah.
safety was in there, and yet, you'll notice mine, I have one tiny one around the dog park, because, again, my lens, similar to Heidi's, was I know we do not have money for next year, and so I am not going to put forward anything that I think would cost more money, and so that's why mine was small. But do I agree with most of these? Yeah, I do, and I would think that they would be good. I'm struggling between reality and priority, and what we can, regardless if it's my priority or not, if the money's not there, we're not doing it. So that was my struggle in this process and when coming up with my submission.
The other opportunity the board has is during my performance review, which happens kind of in the middle of the budget process. So this gives you a many more months here to kind of observe things, but that's another opportunity in creating my performance goals, which will then obviously carry through into the next year as to, and I assume those are your priorities if you're assigning them to me. So that's another way to kind of go at this too.
I think some things can be also accomplished at committee levels too, like the accessible transportation, or, you know, bicycling, walking paths. That's stuff that Public Works will look at, or Plan Commission when new developments are sent, or Plan Commission has worked on some of our zoning code and requirements for parking, for example. So these are things like that won't necessarily cost more to do, but things that various committees can focus on.
Or you're gonna see them in committee budgets that come through, or department budgets.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, anything else on this?
I guess just a couple things. If you are gonna go forgo this process, but the intent is to still have this available on the website, I guess I would almost wanna turn your guys' submissions back for, you know, refining, making a couple paragraphs, and that's what we post, as opposed to kind of posting this and out of context, because you guys weren't given that context when the survey was sent out. So that would be a decision you guys would maybe wanna consider. Or obviously you don't have to do it at all.
I would agree with that, because I'd probably want to add some additional things if it's not going to be ranked. I don't, just in my, I'd like to encompass some other parts in mine.
And when we do that, though, are we thinking about reality? Are we thinking about just next year, the priorities? Are we thinking about, in general, my priorities as a board member? That is my struggle, and I just think if we come at it with different approaches, our answers are gonna look different. It's gonna be, I think, kind of strange on the website. If some priorities are really, you know, big and, you know, lofty goals, and, you know, others
Right.
are just really more specific. So I am not sure that.
I think that it's 2025 non-capital priorities, right? So it's like a 1 year,
Yeah.
like, thing. And maybe there's just like a disclaimer, like, this is my top priority. Like, I care about other things.
Yeah, that's the struggle of putting it out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, this was a survey done internally, and we're not gonna take action on prioritizing it or using this as a tool for any more decisions. So I struggle putting a lot more time into this. I agree. If we're gonna post it, I think we wanna spend time on it. So I would vote that, or I would propose that we just table this and use this as a reference for the board and move on.
It'd also be good, as I think Cindy, you mentioned, to get the information from the surveys this last go through, and I know JJ's working that now, but I mean, that may point us in a slightly different direction, or highlight something we weren't even thinking about too as well for 25.
And we're happy to put the survey on a different timeline. It's only our second year doing it, so they're kind of still learning how best to garner the largest, you know, the most feedback we can. And we were planning to have it closed a little bit sooner, but then a good suggestion from Cameron was now that we have a switch to monthly utility billing, we had another opportunity on a communication with that to get it out to all residents, and I think that got us another. Does anyone know the data on how many more? But it was notable.
I think it was about 190 to 200 extra responses.
Yeah.
So
That's really very significant.
Yeah, there's like 600 total, so I mean,
Yeah.
we got about 30%.
So maybe the
You know, more.
communication strategy will then show that direct mailings maybe are a good way to go.
For sure.
But then I guess I'd also like to see change from the last year too. So like, has there been change from last year's survey to this year's survey, and if we're gonna use that as a tool?
You mean the differences between, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the end, did we decide we do not need to put anything on our website
Related to this, no.
related to this? Yeah, okay.
But a good exercise to go through, I think, for all of us. Then with that, we'll go to new business, and we'll start with discuss and consider alcoholic beverage license applications for the licensing year July 2024 through June 2025. I should have on my list here. Our normal cycle. Go ahead, Lisa.
There was a list attached. Just want to make a note that there are 2 licenses that you normally see that are not on there. One is Grace Coffee, which you will see on the June 17th meeting, and the other is Dollar General, which we have not received paperwork. So you will not see anything from them this year, but otherwise everything is status quo.
I would make a motion to approve the alcohol beverage license applications as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we'll do the same thing with the cigarette, tobacco, and electronic vaping device retail license applications for the July to June 2025.
I'll make the motion to approve the cigarette, tobacco, and electronic vaping device retail license applications as presented.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we move down to discuss and consider the amusement device permit applications for, again, licensing year July of '24 through June 2025, and there was an attached list in the packet.
I'll make the motion to approve the amusement device permit applications as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then on a lighter note, all that licensing. Next then is discuss and consider resolution 2024-15 for the appreciation of services for Mr. David Peterson. Heidi?
As I find it important to recognize the service and contributions of our colleagues, because it's a, it's a notable thing to serve your community. So I wanted to, again, prepare a resolution to thank David Peterson for his service.
I'll make the motion that we approve the appreciation of service to David Peterson as edited.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we have another resolution, 2024-16, recognizing the month of June as LGBTQI+ Pride Month. Heidi?
Yep, a resolution I also presented last year in June, and find that it's important to recognize the history and the future that we strive to achieve, and recognize, appreciate all members of our community, including the LGBTQI+ community in Cottage Grove during Pride Month. So I brought forward this resolution again.
Thank you, Heidi.
So was last year the first year we did this? Because I did look and I saw it was last year was
I think so.
okay. You know, the thing is, I really struggle elevating one group, and I understand it's Pride Month. If I take out LGBTQI+ in every whereas, I agree with it 100%. But singling that group out, I think, just creates more division versus knocking down walls. So I struggle with it quite a bit in terms of as a board elevating one group versus all groups. Because if I take out the phrase LGBTQI in all of this, I'm 110%. It makes perfect sense. That's just kind of my 2 cents on it. I mean, I don't know at a village board level that this is where we should be spending our time personally.
So thank you, Heidi, for bringing this forward. I 100% agree with this, and I think that as a village board, we represent our community members in elevating underrepresented members or and community members who maybe don't feel seen is incredibly important.
I think we need to elevate all members. That's my point. The equality of it is what's tilted when we do this.
I think that this is specific to naming that June is Pride Month. It's not anything, I don't think we're calling out one group in particular. I guess this is really just focused on, not just, but this is focused on Pride Month, calling it out, naming the recognition, celebrating that, and so I support it as well.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-16, recognizing June as LGBTQI+ Pride Month.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Nay.
Anybody abstain? Motion carries.
Can I just add that everyone was invited to the Cottage Grove's first annual Pride Parade at the end of June, and that I would hope that the Village of Cottage Grove would also consider flying an equality flag or a pride flag in front of Village Hall.
And I guess, Cindy, I had a question. Why were we doing it at the elementary school?
Again, I think it's about supporting people who don't feel supported in the community, and that is exactly what this resolution is about. It's what the schools promote: equity, diversity, inclusion, and that's why you're going to see that flag in front of our schools.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with supporting the diversity of it. I have a problem at the elementary school, you know, children that haven't even reached puberty, and we're introducing concepts that are very foreign to them. Kids are very impressionable, and that's where I think there's a timing component, and I struggle quite a bit with doing it at Granite Ridge. But
Okay.
And I think we're beyond this conversation for
I
tonight.
understand that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're off the agenda here a little bit, so.
Agreed.
So next then, discuss, consider Resolution 2024-17, recognize Juneteenth in the Village of Cottage Grove. Again, Heidi.
Yes, another resolution that I again brought forward this year to recognize Juneteenth. It's maybe a holiday not as many people have been familiar with historically, and I think it gives our entire community an opportunity to reflect on our collective past of the emancipation and not being found out until Juneteenth, and a celebration of what our community can strive for moving forward, a celebration of all members of our community and the next steps we can take to be a more inclusive community for all people.
I can get behind this one. The one thing when I read through this, Heidi, is that second to last paragraph, it talks about continuing to work to eradicate racism and the systems of oppression that persist, and it kind of refers to our culture, and it makes the village of Cottage Grove sound extremely racist, and I firmly believe that we don't have a racist community. But that's the only issue I had with this one, is that the verbiage down below kind of reflects on Cottage Grove personally, the way I read it, in a way that I don't think is reflective, but I think the general theme of the resolution is absolutely fantastic.
I think it was written not as a specific to Cottage Grove, but more a generality to the way perhaps loans were given in the past. You know, this is all like very long, historic,
I understand.
pervasive things in our general institutions, not necessarily Cottage Grove specific. But there were, you know, in our collective history as Americans, systems of oppression that kept people from, particularly Black African American people, from obtaining, you know, home ownership or something. It's not necessarily Cottage Grove specific, but there were historically things in, you know, our American culture in general that.
Yeah, and I understand exactly what you're saying. It's just when that second to last paragraph, it talks about within the village of Cottage Grove, but it certainly, as I read through it, reflects a little bit more in terms of racism being rampant in Cottage Grove. And I understand the point you're trying to make, and I agree with it 100%, but that was the only issue that I took up with this particular resolution.
I mean, this is not a perfect community that we live in, and I think racism exists, whether we want to admit to it or not. And it's something that we need to always be, you know, checking our internal biases as well, and something that we continuously need to work on and improve on. And a resolution like this, I think, speaks volumes about the community that we live in, and that we're willing to set that standard as a village board, that we are working towards improving our community.
Yeah, I agree with that, Cindy, 100%. It's just, my only concern was how it reflects on Cottage Grove in one paragraph. And again, it depends on how you read it, but it does talk about within. And I agree with you, there is racism in Cottage Grove, but it's worded in a way that makes it sound like it's rampant and it's chaotic. But
I think the language that includes, you know, within and outside the village of Cottage Grove, Peter, I think might address that concern that we're not saying all this is happening only in the village of Cottage Grove, but here and outside. And the resolution is for our village residents to work to promote racial equity within and outside of the village of Cottage Grove. So I think that addresses the fact that this is not specific to what's happening just in Cottage Grove. So with that, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2024-17 as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion?
yeah, I would be fine. I would just suggest that if we do this again next year, that I don't know, Heidi, if you put it together, but I mean, again, if we talk about wordsmithing, I would like to be involved with maybe softening it and addressing some of the concerns I elevated. But overall, I'm in favor.
Any other discussion? All right, having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you, Heidi, for writing these.
Okay, thank you. Then next up is discuss and consider the block party application for Maggie Walker. Any concerns here?
Make the motion to approve the block party application for Maggie Walker as presented.
Second.
Motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. There we go. We have a young trustee in the audience somewhere. I love it. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Needed that. Reports from village boards, commissions, and committees, starting with Pure Court Steering Committee. Trustee Peterson usually attended that, so I don't know if anybody has anything else. Chief, anything to say on that one?
That meeting was not held, was postponed due to the judge not being able to attend.
Okay.
It will be rescheduled for the next regular meeting in July.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Then next up, Police Commission. You're on a roll.
So, Police Commission, we held a meeting.
Hold on your mic, it's hard to hear, Chief.
Oh, Mike.
His light is on.
Thank you, Pete. We're gonna get a different one.
For the record, he had
Thank you.
So, we held a meeting for the Police Commission on May 22nd. It began at 5:45 PM. At that time, they approved the minutes from the March 27th meeting. Excuse me. They then held elections for the chairperson and secretary. Mr. Stadmiller was named chairperson for the next year, and, excuse me, secretary remains Ms. Williams. Then discussed the department structure and planning for the future of the agency with possible restructure being brought in during the budgetary process. So that's more further discussion in the future. And then had an update related to the department and personnel and where everybody was for those that just graduated from the academy to those that just left to attend the academy. And we did have one individual that submitted a resignation, so starting a new hiring process to fill that spot. And that was the end of the Police Commission meeting.
All right, thanks, Chief. Then we'll move to Parks, Rec, and Forestry and Sustainability.
All right, so we met on May 23rd, and we had an update from, on the library programming, which was good to collaborate with the Parks, Rec, and Forestry, because, you know, a lot of activities overlap, and it's good to get a periodic update on that. We talked about the dog park, and Sean was looking for, and you can always chime in, Sean, some direction from the committee on how to go about, we do have a concept plan that the university program came up with. We're also currently just waiting for the turf to really be more established before we let dogs out. So it was kind of where do we go from here? What do we do looking at the next year budget? And the committee kind of gave direction to let's get the ball rolling on opening it up, and then we'll figure out improvements from there. Is that kind of good summary?
You nailed it.
So we'll still have proposal that Strand would look at how much it would cost to implement the improvements. So we'll see that portion in the next budget, but concurrently we'll be working to get the dog park open as soon as the grass is more established. We also talked about Houston Park. We had in the budget to update the playground at Houston Park. Through some other discussions with a potential utilities update in the area, we're going to postpone that portion for next year and then do it concurrently with some of the utilities work that will likely be taking place in that park and area. And then we'll be able to accomplish more ADA accessibility when we put everything together. So we'll be looking to slide that budget and roll it into the next year and do that project fully next year. So we aren't tearing up the park twice. And then we talked some about the security cameras at Bakken Park. So I don't think there's anything for us to consider tonight for that, but that'll be coming in the future, kind of how we best integrate the security cameras with all the other security devices in the village. So that'll be coming in the future. Do you have anything else to add, Sean?
No, you got it.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Heidi.
Questions? Yep.
With that, then we'll move to Law Enforcement Committee. I'll take a swing at this, and others can jump in. as well. So we met on the 28th of May. There is a discuss and consider here on the agenda in relations to the appeals board for the sex offender ordinance. The committee, the law enforcement committee, members were okay to take that responsibility on. It's a mix of both board members and residents, so kind of getting hitting both those spots without having to create yet another committee, and folks seem comfortable with that at least. So that's in front of this board to consider. Other things that we touched on was the SRO policy and MOU with the school district. Still, coming through with that. I talked a little bit about the RNC transportation security requests. This is a request that's gone out to all the communities around the state as well as across the nation because it's such a huge event. And there'll be a similar thing for the Democratic one, which will be held in Chicago. So we've got two Midwest large events going on. And this would be a voluntary thing for our officers who were not on staff that particular time to ride the buses back and forth from Madison to Milwaukee. Wait around till the buses come back with that. So there's a call out for that. There will be a lot of officers needed. So the committee felt comfortable, again, if it's volunteer, that some of our officers get the opportunity to perhaps interact with other officers around the state or nation and get an opportunity to really expose them to something a little different. Went through the incidents, talked a little bit about the incidents for April, where we had a few folks running through backyards and getting into unlocked cars and things of that nature. This happened elsewhere. They're still trying to piece together the evidence with that. There's not a lot to go on, but as these perpetrators show up again in another community, maybe we'll be able to get that sorted out. Chief touched on the upcoming community events. We've got, which already occurred, the high school state championship for rugby was over the last weekend. Fireman's Festival coming up, and the carnival camping area that's going to be fenced off over by the municipal building, and the Holly Hustle, which is by Shepherd Church later in the month. So there was a lot going on that will involve law enforcement. Chief went through the stats and the monthly summary. Nothing really significant there to report, which is a good thing. And then I'll circle back to the discuss and consider around the appeals board for the sex offender ordinance, which is in front of this board to consider. Anything I missed, Chief, or Sarah, or Chris?
I don't have anything to add about your meeting minutes, but so at the last meeting, I believe it was, we adopted the amendment to the sex offender ordinance and created this appeals board. And the idea was just, well, rather than amending the ordinance, we'll set a policy for what the appeals board makeup will be. So going with the recommendation of the law enforcement committee, if you adopt this resolution, it would set that committee as your appeals board moving forward. One thing I just want to note, so you've obviously got the law enforcement committee and the police commission. So just because I know we have some newer board members, I thought it'd just be worth noting the difference in those two. So the police commission is a sort of a statutory body, I guess, and their role is really limited to employment-related decisions, or discipline, hiring. Am I getting all that, Chief? So the law enforcement is more or less on the public safety side and more policy-related than the sort of on-the-ground employment-related decisions. So that's why it would have it went to law enforcement committee rather than police commission.
Thanks, Rick. Any questions regarding that from anybody?
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-14 regarding the appeals board policy as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion carries. Next, then we move to NADVIG landfill. Sarah?
Yeah. So we met on the same night as Law Enforcement Committee. It was a marathon night, May 28th. And so there was nothing much to talk about at NADVIG. No testing results this month. They'll be available next month. We did do election of officers. So Steve Anders will continue to be chair, and I will be the secretary. And that was the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Then we'll keep you on the mic then
Yeah.
for the fire district.
Yes, all right, fire district, a little bit more to share here. All right, so again, we met on May 28th. We went over the chief's report, that is in the attachment, so feel free to take a look at that. The new squad is set to begin construction this month, hoping to get that completed in August, early September. We did confirm that we will be using I'm gonna read the motion, the 2022 equalized values to determine the split of the cost of the new squad. So I believe that is consistent with our contract. So we did have that discussion. We discussed the pager replacement funds, and so we will be purchasing 2 additional portable radios with the remaining funds we had. Let's see, it looks like relationships are going, or communication, excuse me, is going better between fire and EMS calls. If you recall, there was the EMS calling for fire driving support. Sounds like the communication is going better on that, and things are continuing to look positive there. Related to the ESB wireless and internet network, in order for us to get remote access to the building, we need to build a VPN. So we approved a quote for us to get the router and switch replaced to do that. We also will be installing a call box in the foyer, and we'll be using the remaining ARPA funds for that. Cameron approved that is an acceptable use for that money. So we'll be applying that towards the cost. Doesn't cover all of it, but will cover some of it. We did review the fire department capital budget. We did make, we used the revised May 2024 version as was in the packet, and that's what was presented and passed. As far as the 24 through 2035 capital budget needs for ESB, we approved the draft ESB capital budget to do, with a change to do the study in budget year 2028 for $50,000, and then budget year 2030 to enact the plans that are identified in the facility needs study. And then we elected officers, and I get to be the chairperson. We had elected Chris Stowe to be vice chairperson, but then we did later, after the meeting, find out that does need to be a town person, so that will need to be back on the agenda for next meeting, and the secretary is Mike Duplay. And that concludes the meeting.
All right, any questions for Sarah?
I just want to point out 2 larger capital items. So I kind of, when we're looking at vehicles, anything more than $1 million, I think is significant enough to bring to your attention. So $2.3 million as approved on this board already in 2028 for a ladder truck. There was a commitment to that purchase. Additionally, at the end of that plan, a $1.5 million for, I'm just pulling it up, replace engine 4. So just want to put that on your radar, that we have to balance those requests on top of village requests on kind of our annual allocations.
All right, thanks, Cameron. Thanks, Sarah. With that, then we'll move to reports from village officers. Rick, anything to add?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Cameron, you got to discuss and consider budget amendment for 2024-003.
Yeah, so this is during budget time, just to bring this back up. We don't really know what the final debt issuance performance is going to look like. So therefore, when we budget, we just budget for the proceeds to offset the full cost of the project. Now that doesn't incorporate debt issuance cost or premium on debt issued. So this just encapsulates both issuances, the 2024A borrowing and the 2024B borrowing. And establishes how that actual performance occurred. So you could choose not to approve it, but this activity already happened essentially. So this is just to kind of from an accounting perspective, get things cleaned up.
Any questions for Cameron on this?
I'll make the motion to approve 2024 budget amendment 2024-003 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Then we'll slide down to communication business, starting off with the consideration of the vouchers as presented.
I'll make a motion that we approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
We have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all the, excuse me, somebody had something? Okay. With that then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence. Anybody have anything that want to call out? Otherwise, we'll move on. Upcoming community events. We already touched on a few of them. Fireman's Festival is just a few weeks away. It's kind of going on. We have Music in the Grove coming up. I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on too. Anybody want to call out?
Yeah, don't forget to sign up to either run or volunteer for the Hot to Trot.
Yep. Do need help. Anyone else want to have it call out any other events coming up? All right, then we'll move to future agenda items. Matt, you want anything? Well, Plan Commission, that'll be something different, but.
The vacant trustee spot interviews.
Yes. All right, item 12.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Non-debatable, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, everybody have a great week.
Thank you.